Hello and welcome to my MSFS 2020 friends. Today I'm at Cochran Municipal Airport near Cochran, Georgia, ICAO 48 Alpha. This airport does not get a lot of love from the developers, and it was brought to my attention by one of my viewers. The viewer wanted to improve Cochran, and the viewer wanted to use the Earth to MSFS tool. The problem is there is no 3D photogrammetry here at Cochran Municipal Airport. So that takes out the Earth to MSFS tool. The alternative is to look at available Asobo scenery in my scenery folders and see if I can find some buildings that are usable. If I zoom around Cochran here, you'll see that all the buildings are flat to the ground. For whatever reason, the AI is not picking these buildings up, and the AI is not adding general hangars in their place. So we end up with a two-dimensional airport that is not very interesting. I do believe I have enough ancillary scenery within the Asobo scenery that I can use to improve this airport. So let's see what we can do with Cochran Municipal Airport. Welcome back. At this time I'm going to get started working on Cochran Municipal Airport. And as always, you need a scenery folder available. If you don't know how to make your first scenery folder, I do cover that in my first tutorial. So you're welcome to go look at that tutorial and build your scenery folder. In full disclosure, I do not go through the process that I lay out in my first tutorial on building a package because I keep a template folder available at all times. So I just go in, rename the folder, and go from there. And that's a process I would recommend later on if you plan on building much scenery. I've probably built 300 to 400 different scenery packages, so therefore it makes sense to me to keep a template available at all times. And as always, we want to start out by going in developers mode, which hopefully, as you know, is options, general options, developers on, apply and save. ICAO 48A, I'm already here, but I will type it in. Cochran Municipal Airport, zoom and find a parking spot. That's good enough for me. And fly. Okay, as you can tell, I just pushed fly, sim is running. I want to go up to my developers menu. I want to pause the sim, and I usually like to set the time around midday. Go to my developer's camera, get up a little bit. I have no first-hand knowledge of Cochran Municipal Airport. The best I can do is go by aerial photography, like in Google Maps or Bing Maps. And I do have a picture here of it. And it's as close as I can get. So I'm looking at what's going on here. I see small hangars, perhaps fuel, not 100% sure. This looks like maybe a fuel pump. Other than that, it's pretty simple. I should be able to find generic hangars that will work in place of these hangars. I did notice fuel stations right here in the middle of this tarmac. That looks a little suspicious to me, so I'm going to see if I can get rid of those. I don't believe they would have those sitting right in the middle of the tarmac. I took a break for research to learn how to remove fuel pumps. Normally I use an exclusion polygon. However, the exclusion polygon does not get rid of fuel pumps. So I researched to find out how they can be removed. They can be removed. However, you have to rebuild the airport. That's a little more than I want to get into this tutorial, so I'm going to leave the fuel pumps where they are and work around. I will begin by opening our tools. First of all, go to the Tools menu. Up here on your Dev menu, go to Tools. I want to open a project editor and go ahead and open the scenery editor. I'll start with going to my project editor, ticking project, open project, and then I want to navigate to my folder. This is my scenery folder here, and inside that scenery folder I have a folder prepared for Cochrane Airport. Here, open. Want to go to the bottom, XML, actually the only XML on this particular level, and hit open. Want to tick on the project as I just did on the project editor. Fill in a little information here. Cochrane Municipal Airport. As I've said numerous times, the names are not important in terms of building the project. However, it is important when you look in your content manager and knowing what is what. It's also important for me to keep things from getting cluttered. And if you build a bunch of projects, it can get cluttered pretty fast. Okay, I entered my company name. I'm going to grab my company photo, small photo that I use. And now I'm going to build the package. Go to my inspector window. I should have this ticked. You don't want to be here because then you lose your inspector information. You want to be on the project. And then I can build package. And when the dialog box pops up saying modifications detected, of course you want to tick yes. Once the project's built, I can go up to my dev window here and turn the console off. Then I want to tick on the project editor window, I want to tick on my scene, go up to the inspector and load in editor. I'm going to remove the material editor and wait on all the scenery to load in. Okay, the scenery is loaded in. I completed my homework prior to doing this by going in and looking at what type of hanger I want to use. And the reason I say that is you can just type GEN_hanger. There must be a couple hundred different hangers in here. Rather than bore you all while I look around, I did my research on the ones I think will look best here. This is not going to be an exact duplicate of the airport. To have an exact duplicate, of course we'd have to have all the hangers hand built. We do not have that luxury here, so I'm going to have to use materials available to me. Therefore, I'm going to use a generic hangers already part of the Asobo scenery. Hanger 02, best I recall, looks good here. General Hanger 02, I'm going to select it and I'm going to hit add. Now your gizmo, I didn't mention your gizmo yet. I mentioned it multiple times in other videos, but the gizmo is really important. The gizmo allows you to do several things. When in transmute, it allows you to move the building in its current configuration anywhere you want. I think rotate's pretty obvious, but I am going to rotate this building and put it into place. Also scale, we'll get into scale later because I'm going to use this same hanger over in this location, and this location appears to be smaller, so I'm going to use the same hanger but scale it down. The easiest way for me to do that is just go down to my scenery editor, hit the duplicate button. Now there's actually two there, and I can slide one over. I'm going to use my gizmo to rotate it into place. Transmute to move it. Okay, it's a little large. When I tested it, I went to 0.75 of its size. We'll see, I'll type that in. That seems to be about right. Do need to spin it a little more. Okay, we have two hangers. And this particular hanger here is generic hanger 186. And there's 186. I'm going to add. And use a transmute to move it. Back to the gizmo and rotate. Some more moving. In this location here, I found a hangar 93. I'm going to go with that. Alright, the final hangar in this part of the airport is hangar 184. Seems to be some heavy traffic here. I doubt that's real. I raised the size of that a little bit just to make it fit a little better. For this hangar, I went with hangar 04 or 04. And this location, I went with hangar 109. You'll notice on each of these that I am actually moving it into place. I'm rotating. I am messing with the size a little bit to make it fit in. I'm going to duplicate and move it over here. These two hangars are the same. I went with hangar 01. Of course, I made it significantly smaller. Going to duplicate and move over here. I'm going to increase the size a bit. Okay, we have our hangars in place. As you can see, there's windsocks here. Now, whether these windsocks are accurate or not, I don't know. However, the same rule applies with the windsocks that applied to the fuel pump, so I can't move them. Obviously, there is a windsock here, so I'm going to add an additional windsock. To add a windsock, I have to go up to our Objects window and change from Scenery, Sim Objects. And once Sim Objects is ticked, I can just find a windsock. And here's a windsock. I'm going to add it. And to move it into place. There's some other touches we can add. I really don't know what all of this is. It's hard to tell from this photography, and it's also hard to tell from the Google image. But it looks kind of bad, so I'm just going to put in some tanks to make it look a little better. To me, these look like water tanks, so I'm going to just add a couple water tanks. I'll probably have to size them down a bit to make them fit. Looks about right, so I'll duplicate. On my objects, I'm going to type in fuel cylinder. You see these around airports. I'm going to put a couple of these here. Okay, added one and duplicated one. Find some vehicles to place here. Again, I'm using my gizmo to rotate and move. At this time, I'm going to add some lighting. Now, I can see where there's lights around here. I can see the shadows of the lights when I move around, but it doesn't look to me like this airport is all that lit up, maybe like you might expect at a larger airport. So I keep the lighting rather small, and we'll see how it looks. If you watch my lighting tutorial, you know that I like to get more towards dusk where the lights will come on, but yet enough light I can see what I'm doing. And on our objects window, I want to just type in lamp, and all kinds of lamps come up. I can play around and see what looks good. It doesn't look too terrible. This is simply all according to taste. You can put as many lights, as bright, as big as you want. But I'm keeping it small for now. We also have airport building lights available to use. I'll put a couple here just to show you what they look like. They're also under lamp, and you want to look for airport building lamp. Just use the gizmo to configure it the way you want it to be configured. Transmute. Now here's a little trick I learned. You can slide the light into the building a little bit and it hides a post, but it lights up the side of the building, which I think looks pretty neat. So I'll duplicate that. And I'll put it over here, even though you can't see well for this light. Now we can see a little better. There is a light I like to use on windsocks. This is absolutely personal preference. I'm going to add this light. You may look at it and say, wow, that's too much. I understand that. So it's up to the individual. There is a chocolate light that comes with the Illuminators package. I've mentioned the Illuminators before. They have lighting packages for cities. They're very cheap. You can get an entire city for under $10. Now they may not light up as much of the city as you want, and you want to add additional lighting. But what it does give you, it gives you access to their lights because then they're in your scenery folder. So I'm going to find the chocolate light. And I haven't mentioned it in this tutorial. At times I'll use the add button on the objects window. You do have the ability to do one click, and once you tick the one click, then you can just place the lights wherever you want. That's how our airport looks at night. I'll roll it back to day. And to me it looks a lot better. We now have three-dimensional buildings where we only had two-dimensional pictures on the ground. So at this point I want to save my scenery. Make sure you're in my scene over on the project editor. Go down to save scenery. It's going to bring you up to your folder. In this particular time it brought me up to my scenery folder, so I need to make sure I click on the right scenery folder, which is Cochrane Airport. I want to go down to package sources, double click, scene, double click. We are saving a scenery file, so I'll just give it a name, Cochrane Airport. The scenery is now saved. I'm going to build the package once again. To do that, I want to come over to the project editor, tick the project. The inspector lights up with all the information. Build package. I want to go up to the window tab on the dev monitor, close the console. I'm going to close my tools, and now I'm ready to move it into my community folder. Here's my scenery folder with Cochrane Airport, and here is my community folder. I'm going to my scenery folder for Cochrane Airport, double click. I'm going to packages and double click. And now the package is revealed. I'm going to copy the package. I'm going to paste it in my community folder. I'm done. Now that I'm done, I'm going to restart the sim. Our package has been built, saved, moved to the community folder. Okay, we can see the buildings we added, the lights I added to the parking lot, the hangars. And we'll move over here and look at these buildings. The cars, the buildings, everything's in place, and I believe I saw the windsock that we added when I moved over here. I'm going to change the time of day to see if the airport lights up, which I know it will. And there we go. You can see the chocolate lights I added at the windsock. Like I said earlier, that's just a personal preference. It's the easiest thing I found to make the windsocks visible at night. So Cochrane Airport is complete. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you got something from this that you didn't know, help you improve some airports on your own. If you have any questions, I make an attempt to get to every question. Feel free to leave your questions in the YouTube chat below. And thanks for watching, Patriot 6.